the moment police entered the Notre Dame Basilica in the city of Nice, the site of the latest attack against France.
I just heard gunfire, and then I learned he had done awful things to people in there.
On Wednesday morning, a Tunisian national aged 21 entered the church armed with a knife, killing 3 people, including a 60-year-old woman who had her throat slit and the 55-year-old custodian of the church. Police were deployed across the city, and France's president rushed to the scene to announce he's more than doubling the number of soldiers on the streets nationwide, and to call for the French to stick together.
In France, there is only one community, the national community. And I want to tell all our fellow citizens, no matter their religion, if they believe or not, that we must be united in these times and not give in to the spirit of division.
As Emmanuel Macron spoke about national unity in view of the threat of terrorism, residents of the city of Nice, especially among the Catholic community, spoke about anger and about hoping that the government does more to protect them.
My first reaction is anger, because when we know there will be a drama, it's best to try to prevent it rather than discuss it afterwards. For a few days now, we have known there was a risk of attacks because of France and Erdogan and Al-Qaeda that launched a fatwa against France. We need to stop thinking everyone is nice, because that's not true.
France is still reeling from a number of attacks on its soil in recent weeks, including the killing of a teacher beheaded in the suburbs of Paris for teaching his students about freedom of speech. As authorities vow to fight in defense of France's core values, others question how many more lives that fight will claim.
Well, let's find out more. Tanya Mahera is a senior researcher at the International Centre for Counter-Terrorism, joining us now from The Hague. Thank you for speaking to us. We've just heard about another arrest related to yesterday's attack. Was this, from your perspective, looking at how the events unfurled that Annalisa just laid out for us, is this a coordinated effort? Is this a lone individual? What do you think?
I think at this moment it is too soon to say. I mean, it appears that the different attacks are not coordinated, and at this stage it's also, I think, unclear to say whether or not this attacker had any other people who had helped him. So we will need to wait till we know more once the investigations get in the next stage. So we should wait for that.
What is your analysis of the French government's handling of this? You know, Macron arriving in Nice yesterday, some of the comments that he made, the tone that he's taking. How should they be trying to handle the situation?
Now, I think you raised indeed 2 important points. I think one is the language issue. I mean, he says that it is important to create unity, but at the same time, many of the speeches he has given in the last couple of weeks or tweets, there is a feeling of a we against them, and that is only creating further tension and polarization within the society in France. The focus is very much on the freedom of expression and not so much also on the limitations. And when we look at the measures which have been announced, it's nearly as a reflex that these measures have been announced after the attack of Samuel Paty. It's about the police raids which have been conducted. A mosque has been shut down. 2 NGOs have been disbanded for supporting radical Islam. Migrants with radical views are going to be deported. Homeschooling is going to be more closely scrutinized. Including religious schooling. Foreign imams are going to be barred from the country. This is basically going to affect 6 million Muslims in France, and it affects their right to religion, freedom of religion, and their right to association and freedom of expression. So we need to take that also into account.
How should the president try to handle the issue of freedom of expression?
Yeah, that is a very sensitive and very difficult issue. I mean, indeed, there are limitations to the freedom freedom of expression. It should not incite to violence. It should not incite and lead to discrimination. It should not incite to terrorism. But I think at this time it is important to take a step back, to let the investigations to be carried out before drawing any conclusions, and then to carefully reflect whether or not CT measures are actually really needed. And it's important at this stage not to fuel further polarization and hatred and intolerance in the country,